Good morning, guys. It's Nick at Optima PS. Welcome back to my channel, and once again, I really do thank you for taking the time to hear me out. It really is greatly appreciated. Today's a little bit different. You'll notice a different backdrop here to my video because today I wanted to talk about something slightly different than I normally do. As you're probably aware by now, if you listen to my videos, I normally will be here talking about cryptocurrency, talking about my thoughts, my opinions on the market, what's happening, what's going on. And I always invite you guys to ask me some questions. And I've started to receive my first few questions now. I think I'm only on video number 14, this one. I've been going for a few weeks. I've got quite a few subscribers, so I really do thank you for that. As ever, if you do like what I say, please do like and subscribe to the channel. It's really very much appreciated. I really am grateful for that. But yeah, so quite a few of you have come back and asked me questions off piece, if you like. So not quite what I was expecting to hear. Not quite what I was expecting you to ask me to begin with, but I do talk about myself a lot in the videos. I speak a lot in the, I refer back to myself, my own experiences, and people have come back and asked me some questions about me personally. You know that I live in Asia. I'm actually from the UK. People sort of said, how did you get there? What made you choose that part of the world? What are the benefits of living there? That kind of thing. Because one of the questions that comes up a lot in the crypto world is, we all know that we're in this game to make money. People are very much aware of the fact that they have a good opportunity to make life-changing returns from their investments in the crypto world, sometimes without such a great level of personal investment. You know, if I'm talking about people making hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in the traditional investment world, you really would need to invest a significant amount of money as well. We try to make you about 10% a year. I am a financial advisor. It's what I do for a living. I help people to increase their wealth, wealth creation, wealth preservation, wealth building. That's kind of what we do. And then the other side of that is we help people to identify and relocate to the most tax favorable jurisdictions for their own particular circumstances. And there are lots of places out there, regardless of where you're from, where absolutely legally, absolutely above the law, you can move to these locations and improve your tax position greatly. I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. I'll go into a lot more detail in other videos if people ask me to do so. But in the meantime, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. So I am a financial advisor. And on that note, just to make it clear, anything I say or do in this video is still absolutely not to be taken as financial advice. If I were to give you financial advice, you would employ me, you would sign contracts, I would create fact finds and take down all your details to get to know you personally before I could even dream of giving financial advice. So anything between now and then is absolutely not financial advice. I'm just a guy on the internet like yourself sharing an opinion on something I'm relatively knowledgeable about and something I hope will bring value to you all. And, you know, this is something that you guys have asked me about already. So a bit about me. I began in the UK. You know, I left university. I began working in finance. It's kind of my chosen field. I like numbers. It's something that works for me, and I'm a bit of a people person as well. So it made a lot more sense to me to go in the more personal route than working behind a, you know, a big brick wall in a big bank or something like that on a trading desk. I like the sociable side of this job, and it's the side I really enjoy. And I was working in a company I very much enjoyed back in the UK a long time ago now. I was in my early 20s, and then the financial crisis came along, and it became very apparent very quickly that we were going to struggle in the UK for a few years. The company I worked with were going to make redundancies. I was one of the younger members of staff with no wife or children in them days, so I threw myself on my own sword, if you like, and I took voluntary redundancy. I received a reasonable payoff at those days for 6 or 7 years' work, something like that. And I decided that the Western world, the UK, US, Europe, where I was most familiar with life, was not going to be a good opportunity for the next 2 or 3 years. And so I did what all people do in those circumstances. I looked at the world and thought, where can I go that I'll do well? And I picked Asia. I found myself flying out to Malaysia to begin with. I've since spent time in Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, a little bit of time in a few other locations as well. I now live in the Philippines. I don't actually work here. My wife is Filipino. My kids are half Filipino, so it's a great base for us to place ourselves. I do still work. I do work with my existing clients, but I don't really take on any new clients. My guys are now spread out between various countries from Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Malaysia, into Europe, into the UK. I don't have any clients in mainland USA. That's something that's more difficult. I tend to pass you guys back to American advisors when you get back there. But I am in a position where I have a very, very general knowledge on an awful lot of jurisdictions. Sometimes I describe myself when people ask me where we fit into the great sort of piece of where's my particular piece of the financial world, if you like. I'm a bit like a GP as a doctor, a general practitioner. I'm not an expert. I'm not a heart surgeon or brain surgeon. I'm not an expert in any one particular field. I have a very broad knowledge of many, many fields, and so I can bring a lot to the table. But sometimes I may need to refer you to a specialist in that regard if there's something in particular that you need. But going back to my story, so I've been out here in Asia for a long time, and people are more interested in my personal experiences than my professional ones, which is absolutely fine. I appreciate that side of things as well. So I do find myself out here in Asia. I mean, this is just a website I found to give you a few background images, but there's a few things on here. You've got obviously Thailand. I've never worked in Thailand myself, but Vietnam, where I did spend a bit of time in Vietnam, the Philippines, where I live currently, Malaysia, where I once worked. Cambodia, I've never worked in Cambodia. Singapore, I have worked in Singapore. You know, it's just something to give you a bit of a background screen to get more of an idea as to the sort of places I've been to, the sort of experiences I've had. But it's something that people have asked me about, and people have then referred back to. And you say that you work in a way that helps people to identify these jurisdictions, to relocate to them, to find the right place for me. And it doesn't have to be Asia, by the way. So the companies I work with help people to move to all kinds of jurisdictions and places. One of the companies I work with an awful lot is a company called Property Smith. They're based in Portugal and in Hong Kong. And what they basically do is they help people to identify the correct jurisdiction for them and to move to those places. This page tells you a little bit about Dubai. Dubai offers something called a golden visa. And what the golden visa basically does is it enables you to become a tax resident of that jurisdiction. And that may mean that you pay less tax on certain things. So as a great example, 3 years from now, your crypto portfolio is worth a significant amount of money, and you are a Dubai resident from a tax point of view. Dubai, you pay zero tax on income and capital gains earnings. Zero. That doesn't necessarily mean you'll pay zero tax on your income back home. Some countries will still want to tax you around the world regardless of where you go. Some countries will tax you on earnings above a certain amount of money. Some countries will tax you on various different ways. They might tax you upon death. They might tax you, as the old saying goes, the only two things in life that are guaranteed are death and taxes. And there's always the option to avoid tax in a legal way. We deal in tax avoidance, not tax evasion. Absolutely legal, everything we do. But there are loopholes that governments create. You will notice that the governments, whichever country you're in, the politicians, the wealthy people, that top 1%, the elite as we sometimes call them, they will very, very often make investments, make profits, and pay less tax than us. And they're not breaking the law, or in the most part, they're not breaking the law. I guess there's a few bad ones out there that do. But normally, ordinarily speaking, they're not breaking the law. They're taking advantage of loopholes that every government out there will put into place. Every government out there has these benefits in their tax system for us to take advantage of. They just don't advertise it. They don't teach us these things because they want us to pay as much tax as possible. But these options are out there. This one is Dubai. So in Dubai, you pay zero tax on your crypto profits, for example, which doesn't mean you might not pay them back home. But again, you'll most probably pay a significantly lower amount of tax. They allow you to buy a property in Dubai, of which, again, the rental income would be tax-free if you rent that out. The capital gain would be tax-free if you make a gain on it. So it really is a good investment, this one. I can talk to you in far more detail about this at any other time. Drop me a message in the comments. Request me to touch base, and I can talk to you about this. This is not actually regulated finance as well, so it's a lot easier for me to talk about this in a different way, and I can also introduce you to guys like Property Smith who will go along and tell you an awful lot more detail. You want to come to me first instead of going straight to Property Smith. I can get you discounts on things, but where we stand is this one is really simple. Zero tax on all income and capital gains earned. diverse range of property investments to suit various budgets and preferences. The minimum is about 500,000 US dollars in Dubai, which may not be a realistic amount of money for you today, but it may well be a realistic amount of money for you at the end of this bull run, at the end of the next crypto bull run. You might find yourself in a position that you can afford to buy a property like this with some of your proceeds. And from that point in time, you would then again avoid an awful lot of tax on future income. So, for an example, my portfolio does incredibly well and I get $5 million. I say to myself, great, I will pay 10% of that down on the property. You can take mortgages and things, but just to keep it really simple, I'll throw $500,000 down, buy a Dubai property, get my Dubai residency in that, put the other 4.5 million into investments, and any proceeds for those investments moving forwards will be tax-free. That's a lovely position to live in. That's whether it's crypto investments or whether it's traditional investments. I may still pay tax at source in some of those countries where the investments are based. That's another conversation for another time. But technically speaking, as far as Dubai are concerned, they would not care about how much income I make in Dubai or overseas. I don't pay any tax on that. And so that's a very favorable position to be in. It's not a big deal when we're not earning that kind of money. I personally have been in a very good tax position as well because of the way I set up my businesses and my investments. But that's another conversation again. But in terms of today, if I earned $50,000 a year off my investments, the amount of tax I'm saving isn't that big a deal. But if I'm suddenly earning $500,000 a year income off my investments, then I want to pay as little tax as possible on that. The other bits to Dubai: excellent healthcare hospitals, access to a 10-year renewable residency permit. Again, that's something we talk about in more detail another time, but for now, that's the point to know. Straightforward pathway to long-term residency, allowing benefits of living in Dubai without need for employment, stable currency, potential high investment returns, safety and economic prosperity. Dubai is a good place to live. It really is. It's not for everyone. It's very, very hot. There's some cultural differences that you might take time to get used to, but as an investment portfolio, the properties have done very, very well over the last 10, 15 years. And as a place to live from a tax position, it's a sensationally good tax domicile to find yourself in. So again, going through here, there's a couple of pieces of information here, but I would tell you a lot more about that in more detail. But why Dubai? Tax-free income, vibrant lifestyle, attractive investment, strategic location. I live here in Asia. Whenever I fly back to the US or to the UK, I go through Dubai. Emirates is my airline of choice, mainly because I've got my points with them now, so I get upgrades to business class and things without spending too much money. But in the same respect, it is a very, very good hub in that it's almost central for most places you're going to be traveling in the world. So if I'm going west, I always go through Dubai. If I wanted to go to the US, I could go the other way. It's probably a little bit shorter. I could fly, normally stop in Hawaii, then through to LA. But I don't. I normally go back through Dubai, where I tend to find it's just a more convenient flight. So it is a good hub for that kind of thing as well. But there's other people out there who wouldn't want Dubai. You know, Dubai is one of hundreds of options. Portugal is another one that I talk about in a lot of detail with people. Portugal is a very different place, but with Portugal's golden visa, you get an EU golden visa. And the EU golden visa means you're in a position where you get the ability to live and work in 27 countries, not just one being Dubai. The tax position is different in some of those countries over the others. There's something called the non-habitual residency status, which for today's conversation means you're very, very unlikely to have to pay tax on any income whilst you live in Portugal for the first 10 years. I can go into more detail and tell you more about that at a different time. It does say here minimum investment 500,000 euros, which is more than Dubai, but actually we've got ways of getting you in for cheaper than that. That's another conversation for another time, about 300,000 euros, and you wouldn't need to put all that money down up front. So again, these are conversations we can have. You do typically need to have a chunk of change, but what we're talking about today is more about the benefits that come with this. So again, 250,000 euros is about the minimum investment you can get away with. Extended global mobility along with freedom of movement across Europe, ability to include family members, married spouse, children of the main applicant under 21 years old, and parents of the main applicant. So I could apply for this bring my wife and children with me, and also get my parents an EU visa, which they no longer have because they're British, and we moved ourselves out of the EU, which I won't get into the political conversation there today, but it came with drawbacks to certain people as well as benefits to others. 10 years non-habitual tax regime exemption. You won't pay tax on your income in Portugal for 10 years. Access world-class free healthcare. It's ranked 12th in the world. Education is 16th in the world. Pension is ranked 1st in the world. Low minimum stay requirements, averaging 7 days per year. So you can actually get this golden visa in Portugal by staying there for 7 days per year in the first 5 years. Immediate permanent residence subject to renewal every 2 years. You qualify for citizenship or permanent residency after 5 years. So again, you spend 7 days a year there for 5 years, and then you get the passport. The right to live, work, study, and undertake business in Portugal. Again, there's different investment options with Portugal. There's a venture capital way. There's a donation to arts for $250,000. There's a bank deposit way with 1.5 million euros. You can create a company with a minimum of 10 employees. There's lots and lots of ways of doing this. And obviously, here's some of the benefits you get from living in Portugal or from elsewhere in the EU. Because remember, with that Portugal visa, you'd get to live in 27 different locations if you wanted to. You get the visa in Portugal, you get the passport for Portugal, which is an EU passport. Then you can basically go anywhere within that region. So it really is a nice, attractive option. Today, I'm more talking about the decisions I made. The reasons I looked at various things. It's something that I would recommend to absolutely everyone to try and to travel and to look at the world, especially when you've got this money that comes out of crypto, right? If you're hoping to come out with life-changing money, then you want to change your life with it. And changing your life might mean spending a number of months trying different locations, a period of time. But I would recommend everyone move away from their home country for a certain period of time just to get out there and see the world. Just to get out there and see the world. There's so many things you can see, so many different experiences that you can come across, and it's something that I really enjoy. So the tax planning, the tax side of things is only a small part of it. To save money on taxes is one thing, but when you're talking about a $500,000 a year return on your investments, hey, taxes are a big deal. It's a lot of money, and we don't want to pay them, but you're going to be able to afford to pay them. So it's not just about the tax side of things. It's about getting out there and finding those new experiences for yourself. My kids now are multicultural kids. The downside to that is I don't know where we truly belong and would be the permanent home. The positive side to that is I don't know where we truly belong and will find as a permanent home. It's a really interesting concept, but the simple fact of the matter is you become different to everyone else. You get used to things. I live where I live. The sun shines 9 months a year at 30 degrees. I do Celsius as opposed to Fahrenheit. You'll have to translate that yourselves. I don't know the translation. I drink beers by the pool, by the ocean for $1.50 US, $1 US if I find happy hour. I get to travel to places like you're seeing on this image here, to places like you see down here on these images. I get to see all this for very little expense. I can fly to most countries in Asia on a budget airline for less than $100, or maybe $100, give or take. I can fly to most countries in Asia on a good airline using premium economy or business class flights for a couple $100. It's a nice way of life. It's a nice part of the world to go and see. It's a new experience. And yeah, people ask me about it, so I want to tell you about it. I could talk to you all day long about what I see and get out here, but the answer is drop me a question. Drop me a question on here. Follow me on Twitter. You feel free to ask me as many questions on Twitter, or X as I should now call it, as you like. I'm happy to answer any question you have. I don't get anything out of this professionally. If you went down the route of the golden visa, I'd introduce you to a company, I'd get an introduction fee, but it's not life-changing money for me. It's something I do to help people out. But it's something that I'm happy to answer questions on because it's something that you guys tend to find interesting. As I say, I've talked about my personal part of life as tiny, tiny fragments of these videos, and they're the questions that come up the most. It's obviously something that you guys are interested in. So feel free to ask me as many questions as you like, no matter how big, small, or silly they seem. I'm always happy to answer. I love the engagement. I love talking to people on a daily basis. So listen, we're at 19 minutes now. I don't want to keep rabbiting on all day long. I just wanted to invite those questions and to tell you guys you're welcome to ask me anything you like. In terms of myself, as I say, I'm really, really grateful for the times. Thanks very much for listening to me again. I would be so grateful if you could like and subscribe to this video. Even more grateful if you could share me on Twitter, LinkedIn, so other people like and subscribe to it. I don't know what I'm building this channel for, to be honest. It's something I decided to do because I enjoyed other people's channels and I thought I could maybe bring a bit to the table. I don't really have any ambitions of monetizing this, but I do have the ambition of talking to as wide an audience as possible because, again, the more people that listen, the more benefit I can give and the more benefit I'll get back from people likewise sharing their own experiences and offering things of value to me. So if we live in a world where we all often share, that's all we really want. That's all I'm looking for. So yes, I'd be really grateful if you could do that for me. In the meantime, have a great day. I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks very much, Nick.